Don't Starve is an uncompromising wilderness survival. Just kidding. You know what Don't Starve is. You clicked on this video. And I'm here to tell you all about the lore/story of it all. Let's just get started, shall we? Oh, and like and subscribe so I don't have to get a 9-to-5 office job, making me have to drink coffee every morning and getting a midlife crisis. If we need to start somewhere, which we do, it'd be the story of a man named William Carter. He was born on October 22nd, likely sometime in the 1870s or 1880s, and in England. As a child, he was very interested in magic. He's always dreamed of being a magician himself. On July 26, 1901, he took a boat named Quest to America to start his career as a magician once and for all. He arrived in New York and set up arrangements to start his magic show there, but unfortunately for him, it just did not go well at all. His show had low turnout, and the people who actually showed up didn't enjoy it at all. After his show, his posters were totally vandalized. His magician career wasn't turning out as he planned. His shows were unpopular, and rent was really starting to pile up. He also received a letter from his brother, Jack Carter, who lived in California, basically just saying hi, but also announced that he had twin girls named Abigail and Wendy. William was not finding success in New York, which, to be fair, an English immigrant would have known how insolent those New Yorkers are. He took a train west of the country to see his brother, and while on the train, he found a very powerful book named the Codex Umbra. We don't know how William got his hands on the book, but based on his future actions and the fact he was in desperate need of something to save his dying career, it is likely that he just stole it from someone who had a way into the constant. And if you don't know what that is, it'll be explained later, and no, it's not Wagstaff. This book allowed him to control the shadows itself, something William would use to cause almost everything that happens from here on out. While William was on a train, a strong man named Wolfgang was performing at the Abernethy and Parker Circus near the train William was on. Unfortunately for Wolfgang, while he was lifting an elephant, a little mouse ran by him, revealing that the circus was a phony. Everybody watching was disappointed. The poster was getting vandalized like Williams did. As the circus was packing up to leave after that, a lot of circus items were on train tracks. The very train tracks of the one William was on. Then, crash. Wolfgang had noticed a survivor trapped under the rubble, and even though he had dreams of it, he actually wasn't incredibly strong. However, on some 1.6 GPA activities, he was actually able to lift up the entire train car high in the air and free William from under the rubble where he was trapped. Turns out William had used the Codex Umbra to feel Wolfgang's muscles, which Wolfgang didn't notice until after the shadows had left his muscles, where distraught and confused William is pronounced dead and never seen again. As I said, William was thought to be dead, so he took this to his advantage to leave his past poor reputation and unpaid rent behind. Now, with his newfound confidence, a book that lets him cast shadows at will, and a pair of contacts, I guess, he is now Maxwell the Great, now in California. He put on another show using the book to summon shadows out of thin air, and this time around his show was a huge hit. As he did more shows, his success and audience grew to things he had always dreamed of achieving. But he had noticed that some of the shadows were off and had lifelike features. A journal page he wrote about it reads, "A terrible form took shape in the air above the ritual last night. It was large and indistinct, but its counter-to-itance was infused with a sort of alien malevolence that chilled me to my very core. My fear was so great that I almost faltered in my incantations, and made no hostile motions. However, and after having a tongue in the aether for a time, it shriveled out of existence. What was it? Was it observing me? Is it the guardian of some deeper secret to which I am drawing closer? In any event, I am not keen to meet its like again." Below it was a drawing of the mysterious creature that he conjured. Notes also reveal that he had other items with magical properties tied to the shadows as well. Those were the life-giving amulet and the teller locator staff, being able to revive someone past and teleport. At least one of these creatures that Maxwell released were starting to travel and start terrorizing the regular world. This brings us real quick to Willow, a little girl living in an orphanage trying to sleep with her teddy bear one night. She tries to run from the shadow creature that starts attacking her, but it hides right as she's against the door, and the caretakers walk in and promptly throw her into a closet for disturbing everyone else's sleep. Before she can even explain herself too, and they also took her teddy bear. This caused Willow to spontaneously combust when the shadow snuck in and started attacking her again, setting the orphanage ablaze and making Willow a pyromaniac for life, as that's what saved her and got her teddy bear back. We'll talk about her more later. But back to Maxwell. Got curious and was even able to start studying the shadows and magic that come from the Codex Umbra. Even with his ever-growing show, which now has an assistant named Charlie to increase show quality and such. She doesn't know about how Maxwell summons the shadows or much of anything about the Codex Umbra. But even with an assistant to make his show the best possible, he just couldn't stop studying the mysteries of the book and the shadows. It really takes a toll on his sanity too. Every time Charlie checks in on him whilst he's trying to figure it out, he looks more stressed and confused, so he's rejecting plans to hang out with Charlie so he can continue his studies and piece everything together. One rainy night, Charlie couldn't find Maxwell wherever they usually are, probably backstage. She was worried and rushed to his apartment to see what was wrong. She explored his apartment and found a series of hidden rooms behind his fireplace, but that only made her more confused and worried about what was wrong with Maxwell. Before long, shadows started their invasion of his apartment, causing a more confused Charlie to run off. Only then Maxwell appeared holding her rain hat which she had left behind. Not too long after that, Maxwell just tries to brush it off with her and have another performance. Just another average performance in April of 1906. All was going well until a shadow hand started trying to pull Maxwell inside the book. Charlie just played this off as a stage stunt, what he was doing. But then, many powerful hands bursted out of the book, causing disruption and chaos throughout the building, and dragged Maxwell and Charlie into this strange and mysterious world known as the Constant. After Charlie and Maxwell were sucked in, they were led into the Constant as the alternate dimension they were trapped in game. The Constant was relatively empty when they arrived. There weren't a lot of creatures other than the two most notable pig and worm humanoids. It is unknown if the two spent much time there before getting gifts from the shadows. Charlie became the darkness itself, giving her two alter egos, one of that's just her old self, and a brutal monster who just bites anything that is in complete darkness. Maxwell was put on the Shadow Throne, making him the ruler of this world and let him create anything he wants at will. As stated, however, the Constant had local inhabitants before them. There is a very civilized area of pigs on the faraway plateau of Hamlet. It is likely Maxwell has limited control over this area. Now that we're here in the Constant, this would be a good time to discuss the history before Maxwell and Charlie's arrival, as it is pretty important as well. As I mentioned, there wasn't much before Maxwell became the ruler, but some civilizations and monsters existed. The first are deep underground, simply known as the Ancients. There's a chance that they are forced underground from the conditions outside, as these people once worshipped the living moon entity, Altar, as the ancient Lunarone stone found in the ancient archives are meant to be worshipping Altar. Additionally, some of the buildings in the Hamlet Plateau look familiar to some built inside of the ruins in the ancient archives, as well as the ancient herald looking somewhat like the ancients themselves. Back on track, there was a massive famine that plagued the people, and many of them were scared and worried as well. Then the story gets even more foggy because the ancient story is encrypted on murals, and the next part is broken and the characters cannot read it.
We assume that the ancients discovered the dark and powerful resource, nightmare fuel. They also likely stopped worshipping Altar in favor of another entity, simply known as them, as nightmare fuel is tied to the shadows, which is tied to them. Was this a gift from them, or did they produce it? We don't really know. At first, using the nightmare fuel actually worked quite well. The civilization was thriving and advancing better than they ever had. But it seems like they overused the stuff as some black shadows started to overtake the city. As the chaos erupted, the ancients started to shed their own skin, leaving a shadowy nightmare of their former selves. The shadow creatures are born. If you'd like to know more about it, see my boy Wormwood's quotes for the ancient murals. There's some very heavy lore drops. There are also the Pikmin, originating and still living on the Hamlet Plateau, in a very orderly and civilized society. The king and some pigs were sent off to conquer the areas below the plateau, but if you see them, you could tell they went much more barbaric down there compared to the Hamlet equivalents. All the non-Hamlet pigs also have the were-pig curse, a trait that only the princess of the royal family has in the Hamlet plateau, meaning all the pigs in the mainland might be descendants of the royal family. And most weirdly, on a somewhat faraway island, there's a massive beast called the Gnaw, who has an endless hunger, forcing mortals below it to offer food to keep it satisfied. If you don't, it will cast a curse on you, transforming you into a merm. Merms transformed likely were able to swim to the mainland and the shipwreck world to do, merm stuff. One of the shipwreck variants are the fishermen, despite merms being fish people themselves. This could be how they built their houses that they originate from, since the crafting recipe requires fish. They all just stuff themselves into the houses. And there's also the goat people on the Gnaw Island. We don't know anything about them. Now let's take a U-turn real quick into the real world after Maxwell and Charlie were sucked in. Turns out that the 1906 San Francisco earthquake was caused by Maxwell Gaming Don't Starve. Make sure to tell your history teacher that this is true. This is important for a young inventor named Wagstaff. Take a shot every time I say a blank name blank. After seeing a building collapsing, this kind man instantly runs in to steal valuable stuff on people and take what he can, including saving some random video camera instead of some random guy's life. He returns home, finding out that he can project himself into the Constant. Finally, back to Maxwell. After becoming the Shadow Ruler and creating a bunch of weird monsters, he's ready to have some people to torment. Turns out, getting sucked into a new dimension after already being insane will cause some random guy to do some weird stuff. Maxwell had the power to interact with the real world, but likely wasn't able to escape it. Neither was anybody else who was about to arrive in the Constant. I believe that Wilson was the first one who would enter the Constant. Before we talk about him, however, let's go back to Wagstaff really quick. After the earthquake incident, he now owns a factory producing the Voxola PR-76 radio, and the factory also likely has ties to the Constant itself. As in his room, there is a portal leading straight to the Constant. He also had a lab too at his house. We'll talk about it too. It's just not that important right now. The main thing is that he produces the radios which Maxwell talks to people on. This brings us to Wilson. Wilson is struggling to make the major science breakthrough that he's always dreamed of creating. When Maxwell starts speaking with him, Maxwell says he can give him forbidden knowledge, and Wilson was very excited and he eagerly got to work to build the thing Maxwell infused within his head. After completing it, Maxwell started maniacally laughing, and the shadows drew him straight into the Constant to be forced to survive through the creatures and harsh seasons there. That's Maxwell's tactic. There are people who want something so bad, and he'll give it to them at the cost of being a prisoner in the Constant. But he'll just drag them instead of building a portal from now on. My theory is that Maxwell had to build the portal that allowed Shadow Hands to kidnap people anywhere in the world. lightning round for the characters with unimportant backstories. Wolfgang was likely convinced he can be the strongest ever. Wendy was convinced that Maxwell could bring his sister back. Bottom was able to save the knowledge in the library after someone set it on fire. Woody was likely convinced by being able to bring back his lost wife and axe, I guess. As of writing the script, the Bellagio crossovers come out, and Woody, when expecting the machine, says one more round Lucy with an E. This could mean something, that he lost Lucy to gambling. Wes just happened to bump into Maxwell's former tax collector while he's getting kidnapped. Max was imprisoned for this. After Wagstaff brought a family spider from the continent, Weber was bit and transformed into one. Maxwell said he can make him feel at home. Wickford was promised to be able back on the stage after her career was over. Lonnie and Woodlegs were promised somewhere with unlimited water to sail and surf, or at least hard because he had a sick, caring mother before he was kidnapped. But even though he only has chef-related stuff in game, he was promised to travel the world cooking while his mother was safe. He didn't lie because she wasn't in danger, and Wheeler was promised a vast and unique world to explore. Winona, despite not being playable in solo, likely was dragged in Maxwell's reign because Charlie was still having the split personalities, and there's also a few constant natives. Wilbur is the king of the primates, Wilbur is the princess of the pigs. Wormwood was created by Alter. There's two cases of getting into the constant other ways. Wick 78 was Wagstaff's assistant, who started resenting, was promptly shoved into an evil robot suit and thrown into the constant, maybe for punishment or to study the differences of a non-hologram in the world, or probably both. Most interesting, in my opinion, however, is Willow. After burning Worker Bomb's library, the Shadows left her a note saying one left. This means that she was working with the Shadows, and being in the Constant is a reward for her work. As Willow says that the Constant was the best thing to ever happen to her, being trapped in the Constant. Also makes sense for her personality. She gets to burn anything she pleases with no consequences, as she could create a portal to a new world or just die if she destroys the one she's already in. Oh yeah, that's part of something Maxwell did. If you die, then you're just thrown into a new world. Wilson is the only one to canonically die, but we can assume the other survivors died based on skeletons and graves around the map. And with Wendy's quotes, there's no way she hasn't tried death as an escape. Many times the survivors tried and failed to escape, searching the oceans of Shipwrecked and the mysterious world of Hamlet, as well as the caves and ruins Maxwell plugged up. Wilson eventually was able to discover Maxwell's door. This is how he could escape, return home, and explain his story to everyone waiting for him back at home. When jumped in, he found just another world that was a harsher version of the world he was already in. Maxwell appeared again to say that his portal was found and it will make it tougher for Wilson. Wilson manages to push through though, all the trials and tribulations. The world's getting increasingly tougher. One of them had a permanent winter, one with two islands of peace and chaos separated by wormholes. He also found and frees West there. And lastly comes to a world that is permanently night, while Maxwell gets more and more crazy, warning him to stop. After all of this, he fights the final boss, enraged Maxwell using the shadows to demolish him. Just kidding. Wilson finds Maxwell looking like a man in a midlife crisis, just sitting on his throne, talking to him about how he is the ruler, but the rules tie him down. So starts mentioning them, implying that they are very much still here trying to change the world. Turns out that he's stuck to the throne and the shadows are making a decoy Maxwell. Wilson tries to attack Maxwell, but the throne strikes him with lightning and Maxwell says he tried that already. And when Wilson turns off the gramophone, Maxwell thanks him because he's heard it ever since he was stuck there. Turning it on again has Maxwell say that he deserves that. Depressing, huh? Wilson eventually decides to put the divine rod that let him seek out the portal in pieces to escape his current world back into a holder, finally freeing Maxwell just to see him immediately fade into dust and destroying your eardrums. Wilson is then grabbed by the shadows and stuck on the throne himself, and the gramophone starts playing again. I won't be giving Wilson's Rules own section or really talking about him much, because we don't really know anything about what happened. And Nev has examination quotes in the sequel are him saying, "Well, I made that creature." It also didn't take long before Charlie, the Shadow Queen, approaches him and agrees to free him, now before breaking some of his bones and forcing him back to the mainland, and taking the throne for herself. She isn't bound to it like Maxwell and Wilson, being the lack of light itself, and is also able to combine her constant personality and evil night monster form into one, starting Charlie's new rule. After turning into dust, Maxwell was now in the constant, fighting off the creatures that he made himself. He was really struggling to survive until he met good old Wilson yet again. And to put it lightly, they weren't very fond of each other. After finding out that fighting each other isn't a great idea, with everything in the constant trying to kill them, they decide to just sit down by the fire in a very awkward silence. Wilson eventually breaks it up, asking Maxwell why he's here despite just dying. Maxwell just says, I don't know. Then he asks Wilson why he's here despite being on the Shadow Throne, he thought, and just explains the Charlie story. After a bit, Maxwell starts digging around Wilson's storage, finding a blueprint. Wilson wasn't very too fond of this. Maxwell knew how to build the portal while Wilson didn't. So they agreed that they could try teaming up to build whatever the blueprint was. They worked diligently and ended up successful. They had built a one-way portal that led some of the survivors trapped in the other constant worlds to a singular one. It seems like Charlie had some different plans for the survivors than Maxwell. Maxwell just used it to torment the survivors because he was bored or something. Charlie has them here to do her forbiddings. I think she still kind of likes seeing the survivors suffer though, because she does still kill them in the dark. She has added some more hostile creatures, like the Bee Queen boss. But she also has added some positive stuff as well. It's just the seasonal events that are canon, by the way. The most important thing, however, are the ancient fossils that allow survivors to summon reanimated skeletons with power from the ruins. Spawning it outdoors makes her weak and confused, but building it closer to the ruins makes it stronger and smarter. To do this, the survivors also had to fight through the ruins until finding the ancient guardian, which dropped the ancient gateway key. Also had to summon the shadow chess pieces to get a cursed heart thing to summon it. Building in front of the ancient gateway, they summoned the ancient fuel weaver. Some of the survivors had done this and defeated the fuel weaver. He then stuck the ancient key they retrieved from killing the ancient fuel weaver into the ancient gateway to see where it leads. Maybe home this time? They were instead brought to a whole new dimension called the Forge. This guy actually isn't important, named Pugma, leads a bunch of weird pig things that the survivors have to fend off. Nothing really happens here other than the fights, which only lets 3 of the survivors escape to the gorge. I think the others just went back to the constant. They must feed the aforementioned Gnaw to escape. Basically explained this earlier, but the survivors just feed the Gnaw a few dishes and go on to their next adventure. Oh wait, they're back in the normal constant. Charlie also remembered to add Warley to the Together cast. Someone new seemed to integrate into the survivors' camp. A Krampus imp named Wartox who can just teleport and eat souls pretty casually. You can also dimension hop, which is cool, but he prefers the constant for some reason. Charlie had also thought it'd be a good idea to bring Wormwood through the portal too. Thing is, he's created by Alter in the Hamlet Plateau. Why was he taken to the mainland? Alter doesn't really like Charlie's rule in the shadows. Was Wormwood made to specifically counter shadows? Did Alter know that Charlie's transporting people and Alter made him this cute little propaganda guy? How long did it take for him to grow after the gem fell from the sky? Whatever his purpose was, he came just in time for Alter to start fighting back against the shadows.
Ultra's first move was to break off part of itself to create an island under his control. Things are quite off here. The survivors' sanity is replaced with enlightenment, and they want low enlightenment so they don't get their bodies taken over by the Gasalts, who fly straight into anything not already under Ultra's control. If the thing happens to be dead, then the thing gets resurrected but corrupted, no longer owned by the power of Charlie or nature. Walter has always used planes to his advantage, as seen with eye plants, which do seem very lunar. Ultra's plane is likely to use Gasalts to take over anything not already in the Lunar Empire, and use plants to control without dead creatures, as Gasalts can't take over plants. Probably. When Ultra dropped to the island in the world, it also increased the sea levels greatly and smoothed out the water, making it possible to sail like they did in the Shipwrecked world. Nobody seems to remember how to make an effective boat, as they just go big wooden circles and paddle it to travel. And that's how they got to the lunar island. I also want to say that this update series is known as Return of Them, and it's likely that Ultra isn't them, but they could be multiple beings. A good chunk of time after this, around Halloween, Wicker Bottom's reading Wendy and Weber a spooky story in a spooky swamp. Turns out the swamp was really spooky because of merms and spiders and lightning and octopus. So while the three are getting absolutely demolished, a very intelligent merm guard girl notices the book Wickerbottom was reading and starts reading this too. She eventually started learning English and joined the survivors. As they are sailing the ocean, they find messages showing a location of a kind living crab thing named Pearl. There's some scrap around her island the survivors collect, and she also helps them get closer to Alter. New survivor named Walter stumbles into the Constant looking for the werebeaver at Woody's cabin, landing him in a similar fate as Woody. He also meets a weird dog thing named Wobie. As time goes on, the caves have started to catch the lunar virus too, as they start turning lunar, eventually leading to a whole new caves biome where Alter has won over. This happened to connect to the Ancient Archives, part of the Ancient Society. After putting dilated knowledge into funny floor, they got from putting an iridescent gem in the ring thing, and some other stuff too. I don't really know what happens. They unleash chaos. There is now a battle of Gasalts and nightmare creatures, the first true battle of the war. Charlie eventually joins too, starts kidnapping Gasalts when she notices something weird about the moon with the Gasalts powered flame. This all eventually led to unite some of the items related to the moon's powers, summoning moonstorms around the map, and making a lot of the Constant more lunar, also erasing the darkness of the night. This apparently made Ultra upset, even though the survivors seem to be helping it by making everything more lunar. And Ultra sent down part of itself as the Celestial Champion. This is a powerful entity, but the survivors overcome it, causing eternal darkness for like a day before the moon refractures into a new moon. Quickly after this is done, a very certain scientist is Wagstaff. Steals the energy that the Celestial Champion was using. Survivors also start to notice lunar rifts opening, but Wagstaff is still beyond curious and maybe caused them. Speaking of them, Charlie figured out how to summon them, or one of them, to have nothing happen. She also got Maxwell to join her side again, but we've literally seen no signs of like anything happening other than them talking in the 2.5 years. Shadow rifts also started opening in the caves, very similar to lunar rifts, but obviously shadows. Wagstaff also managed to open a portal, bringing a bunch of monkeys in. It also seems to be a one-way portal. He also now works within Wilson's old house, also his house because he sold it to him, through the portal. Wanda also wandered into the Constant around this time. She basically knew how to conquer time before Einstein did, but shadows chased her into a different timeline, the one of the Constant. She couldn't leave because her watch that teleports her through time broke, and the weird constant time makes her age really rapidly. The lunar rifts also started causing a lot of other problems too. Some giants were getting revived by Gasalts. Luckily, this is exactly what Wagstaff is studying.
and reward survivors who take them down. And that's where the story ends for now. The From Beyond update hasn't had any important more wise stuff in my opinion, mostly due to the focus on skill trees and Clay becoming a publishing company. There was the Lunar Machinations trailer, which seems important, and I didn't talk about the scrappy scavengers as it doesn't really seem important, but maybe it will. If I still care about this channel in like 5 months, I'll post an update when the storyline gets complete. Also did things like not include times because the constant works differently. There's some plot holes like how Wendy's about 9 in the game is born in 1901 even though the Vauxhall radios that Maxwell uses to kidnap people aren't invented until like 1918. Channel wise, this is my first video. I plan to post videos like this but to other video games as of now, but nothing's really certain yet. Thank you for watching to the end. Like and subscribe or Maxwell Don't Starve will trap you in the constant.